video to the 5 match reports from the Athens competition in 2024, which appears on the Madaxeman website. This is the day of tourism, I guess, after the competition on a Monday morning. As you can see from here, it was a bit wet and damp, so I was kind of running between museums, but in Athens that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's some brilliant museums to run between, so that's all great. And near the venue of the competition and near where I was staying then as a result was, very fortunately, and not by any real planning on my part, the Archaeological Museum, which you can see here now. This is near, I think it's Victoria or Victoria Tube Station if you're going to Athens. My recommendation, which I discovered again almost by accident, is to get there early when it opens, because there's a lot of school groups and other big groups turn up, so it can suddenly get very, very busy. And it's not the most enormous museum, but it's got some brilliant stuff in it, as you can, or as you will see hopefully soon. So when you go in and you've checked in all your bags and all the rest of it, you're thrown really very much straight into the Mycenaean and section, which is where they've just got some staggering treasures for a wargamer or anybody. Just to think how 16th century BC is quite a bloody long time ago, really, isn't it? And there is an enormous amount of finds that were dug up by some German bloke in the 20s, probably, because that's when it always happened. But the detail, the amount of stuff there is absolutely staggering. And you know, knives, swords, you see all of these in all sorts of museums from all sorts of eras, but to see them from that far ago is pretty spectacular. But this is where it starts to get really, really bonkers amazing. These figure of 8 shields, which all wargamers will have on a Mycenaean army, probably painted with sort of cowhide thing. This actually is kind of one of them, really. It's a representation of one covered in metal with designs and stuff on it. You know, you kind of, I don't know, I'd almost had an assumption that these things were perhaps apocryphal or not real. So to actually see kind of one, or a representation of one, is just bonkers. And then that's before you start getting these incredible gold grave finds. These are all, I guess, appliqued onto clothing or something like that. And when you get in, the level of detail that was made 16th centuries BC is absolutely insane. And not only the floral designs, but some of these have got kind of dolphins. There's obviously huge numbers of them. They must have been for clasps and brooches and all sorts of things. Torques, other bits and pieces for belts. Must have been a lot of heavyweight boxing champions in the Mycenaean era. But you know, this is just absolutely gobsmacking amounts of stuff. And again, once you look at some of them in real detail, you can see, look, there's a figure there. He's got a spear. He's attacking something, and this is just pretty much on a button. So the skills of the goldsmith that was making stuff back then is just, you know, mind blowing, really. Another one here. These guys are in a chariot, a couple of horses. They're chasing an antelope. They've got a bow. Both wearing hats. It's just, my God, all this wargaming stuff is real. It's not just something that was in an Armies and Enemies book and then everybody else has copied it. It all came from original sources like this. And then this is just, well, early days in this video, but one of the most staggering things, again, I think. Figure of 8 shields. This is the cow splotches on the front. Some other different shaped shields as well. Do it on a lion hunt. Some of the lions have bottled it, are running away. One of the lions is having a bit of a go. Maybe there's a dead geezer there, perhaps. And there they are. So this is exactly real. This is what your toy soldiers, your miniatures have come from these sorts of patterns, which you can actually see for real in this museum just by wandering into it. Again, another slightly sharper photo of it there. And again, showing those 2 buttons or brooches in context. And what was this one? I think this was like the major toilet of the Mycenaeans, the throne of Tiryns. So if you're ever building yourself an enormously impressive bog, I think it would need to be called the throne of Tiryns. And there is the throne. And interesting that, not quite sure, it's not built into the wall. I guess the cistern isn't, which obviously wasn't fashionable then, but nowadays building them into walls very much the key thing. And again, then you've got some incredibly old pottery. Whether, you know, did people actually look like the Simpsons in 16 centuries before Christ? Who knows, or BCE, or whatever it is these days. But certainly that Simpsons art appears to have carried it all the way through those many centuries to the current day. They've got some lovely socks. They've got exactly the same sort of shoes that a lot of my 15mm figures seem to have got on. A little bit of dangly bits down there. Interesting colours, but what happy chaps they are, really, aren't they? You know, everybody must have loved going to war at that time. And there's another shot of the guy. There he is. I think that definitely is possibly one of the guys in The Simpsons. Works in a local shop or something. And then a lot of these octopusy type things must have been a very big maritime component. Octopuses and dolphins are very, very big for them. But if you live in the Med, I guess it is. And I think it's got the right number of arms. Yes, it does. Pretty cool stuff. Loads more of these little depictions of tower shields with 3 sets of spots on it. These are all obviously not full scale, but brooches and small ones. You've got those hats that certainly my museum guys have got, and there's some interesting stuff coming in, and you can see little very beautifully carved representations, just really to underline how real all this stuff is. Here's another one. I think this might have been made in ivory. They all do seem to have these inlays, but I suspect they were probably filled with stuff when it was original, and that's kind of come out somewhere along the line. And this is those hats that I painted up, not quite sure what they were, but these are bone. These are pieces of bone that were sewed together to make this flexible armoured helmet with this thing on the top so they could be lifted up by a crane out of the line possibly. And some smaller depictions of it showing kind of what the guy is supposed to have looked like. Some of them are slightly eroded, but again, the age of this stuff and the quality of it is just bonkers. There's a tiny jockey thing going on with a very, very big horse, or possibly this might be one of the Victrix horses that it was modelled on, which are always slightly out of scale, but they seem to have with a rider from a different company. We'll never know. One of these, I think, is Homer. Might be this guy, or he might be a Greek emperor. Who knows? But he certainly looks pretty serious, doesn't he? He knows what he's doing. This is not a man who says "dull" lightly, or possibly it's that guy. And then again, this looks maybe this is a carving of someone from some sort of surf hippie commune in California in the 1970s, because that's quite a lot going on with that hair over there. Bit more kind of proper Greeky stuff. Some of the guys, oh dear, hopefully the algorithms don't spot that little bit, fighting each other hand to hand with the shields on the textbook black painted bits and pieces. There's some more people, bit of a dodgy old club there. Not quite as Simpsons-ist. Maybe people had evolved from being in the Simpsons to just having kind of larger calves and thighs and buttocks at that time in history. And then you start getting into the proper bits and pieces of sort of the Greek and Persian wars over here. Some of, again, fantastic stuff. Some of it was discovered by Mr. Furtwängler in 1901, and I don't know if anybody German's listening this and can post some comments on the YouTube site to explain what exactly Furtwängler is. But you know, if somebody came to my country and said I am a Furtwängler, I'm not sure I would let them anything with a spade, to be honest. But the Greeks clearly did, and this guy found a load of stuff. And here we've got a load of arrows. This is just kind of snuck in there. This is bonkers. These are arrowheads from the Battle of Thermopylae that have been dug out of the site. So, you know, turn the skies black, we will fight in the dark. This is the stuff what made the sky dark. How bonkers is that? Absolutely, you know, real stuff just in a side cabinet, because there's so much going on there. And then after that, I kind of did a runner from that one in between the rain and went to the Greek Military Museum, which is just sort of across town. It's about a half-hour walk, 3/4 of an hour walk or so. I probably had to stop for a coffee and a cake on the way because it may have rained. And like all sort of non-mainstream European countries, it has got either an F5 or an F-104 starfighter. This is an F5, nice little example of it. Wonderful little plane. And then obviously they've got sabres as well, because everybody started to wheel those out in the 60s. And yes, of course, there's a starfighter. Somebody managed to land that successfully and not crash it, and a bit of an engine thing at the back going on. And another different type of sabre. So maybe the other one, so it's an F-86. Probably I should know that. And yeah, that's the other one. They're probably both called sabres. Can't remember. And a Brewster Buffalo. Not quite as cool. I think obviously nobody going too big on the camo that. Maybe it flies over the sea. And 25-pounder type gun, crappy old aeroplane, other bits and pieces. And then I discovered I had to walk around the back of the museum to the other side. And going through history, this museum has got a lot of reproductions of stuff in it. The original ones are obviously in archaeological museums or kept safe somewhere. But again, you've got starting right with Greek warfare and the Greek military from the Mycenaeans. So I'm now much happier about my multicoloured shields, unless these are people in some sort of new shift sort of dress. But clearly you can see the link from the cow to the cowhide shield over there in your Mycenaean warfare malarkey. This would have been, or is, a copy of a Mycenaean type bronze sword. Nice little hilt, bit of sword action going on there. There's quite a lot of this sort of stabbing people thing going on here. Here's another one. A 3rd to 1st millennium BC European weapon, cast brass axe from central Italy. So you're starting to get into your proto-Romans around about that time. And this kind of Thracian type shield, that's a pretty cool design, isn't it? That's more the sort of stuff that I paint myself down with just stripes, or perhaps that's the back of it. But that peltasty type shield, pretty cool idea to have an eagle. I'm not sure I've seen any little big man transfers with that on it. And then you start getting some cool stuff. You've got naval battles, probably Salamis. I doubt they were all colour coded at the time, but this is kind of quite a cute model. I'm not sure you're allowed to move them around on it though. Get one of those big long sticks and push it out. Oh, it's all a blur of motion. There you go, that's slightly better. And not a lot of explanation really about this, but clearly some of the ships have sunk or been wrecked there, and there's a lot of action going on, and that's a lot of toy ships. And then you start getting into reproductions of proper Greeky, helmety type stuff. Again, you've got soldiers like that. This is where they really came from, and they really do. Here, what have we got? Other people jumping off a ship. Yep, we're back to the Simpsons here. Although he looks like he's wearing a bit of a French beret, that chap. They've got the cows. They've got the map of somewhere. Obviously, a little crab. Looks quite a happy crab actually. So that's entirely doing Greek warship against an Etruscan or Phoenician merchant ship on the first half of the 7th century BC. And then proper, yeah, we're into phalanxes as well. Now, they seem to be carrying their shields in quite an unusual way, almost wearing them as a breastplate, so I'm not entirely sure about that, but it's always good to get a bit of phalanx-based picturing going on. Macedonian phalanx, characteristic battle formation introduced by Philip, so at least they've got that right. It would be great if they actually had one, but that's it. And then you start getting to film all these sort of Roman and Greek and Seleucid type images and pictures from photos from graves and things like that. Mock-up of a shield, that's a nice simple design. We could probably all have a good go at that freehand, and it's a nice silver and gold combination. And then you start getting into sort of the more Roman era bits and pieces. Again, lots of replica weapons, replica shields. This museum isn't too fussed about having original artifacts. It's much more happy to have replicas. I suspect that's a big Roman pilum with the extra weight there. And then you start even getting into weird, a Greek fire launcher. So your Byzantines would be carting around something like this and squirting it over the walls of the Byzantine navy ships against the Turks in the 7th to 12th century AD. And there's a few more Byzantine type people lurking in the background. Again, very bit keen on pictures and stuff like that. You've got a siege. I wonder if I know my Greek's not that good, can't really do that one. But it does look like the Turks attacking somewhere, Byzantium or something like that, clambering over the walls, getting into it, getting all sorts of stuff happening there. And then you get into the Middle Ages as well. Loads more cool replica weapons and replica shields stuck on the walls from the Byzantine period of Greece, but even the Teutons get a look in there as well. Yeah, that's definitely Brothers of God, isn't it, really, with that thing going on. He looked a bit tired, this guy, as you get into a slightly older age, but some nice full plate armour in there, and there's some pretty good moustache action going on some of the pictures, paintings after that. And then you start getting some of these cool little scenarios, these chaps running through a ravine, getting shot, having a bad time, and the bigger figures in the foreground just doing whatever. There's not a massive amount of translation of some of the stuff here, so you've got to kind of work out what it is, and I'm not sure I can even remember what it was a few weeks ago. Second World War bits and pieces, some stuff captured from Germans left behind somewhere. I think everywhere you go that's had a Second World War piece has got this pretty much stuff in it, and this is no exception. Here we've got a Stuka dive bombing a Greek fortress that's been dug out, well, not cut away, so that you can see how far underground it was. Some sort of siege during the blitzkrieg of the Balkans and the Peloponnese. And look, there it goes. You can see the little tankettes. You've got Armada coming in there, probably maybe a bit. Is that right time? And some of the early war tanks. You've got your tank traps, your Germans going over there, a load of bunkers waiting for them. And then clearly, this guy's injured. He's very, very close to a very big piece of weapon, but he's still got his fag on, hasn't he, really? Because you've got to have a bit of smoking in the trenches. That all happens, even if it's quite kind of cold and you're having quite a bad time, as he seems to be. What have you got here? You've got an H&K with some gold plate given to somebody in the Middle East. But lovely enough on that. And then some very, very old mock-ups of or copies of very, very old warriors from old grave finds. That's all over the shop. This, you're starting to get into that thing where they do the funny marching. Not entirely sure what was going on in here, but he's again having a bit of a bad time, and some very, very good mustache action happening there in this thing. And then bizarrely, you start getting into kind of world of swords, and some of those swords are samurai swords. So like I guess many countries, they've managed to purloin and nick some samurai armor. Little white spots on it there, blue spots, red spots. Funny little samurai face thing going on, and then this is what I was kind of hoping for a lot more of, but this is kind of what it really was. You've got a lot of sort of Turkish Arabic type helmets from the Ottoman times, and weapons as well. Lots and lots of this beautiful chainmail, a lot of the beautiful detail on there. There's kind of a room of his stuff from the Turks, and then look at that, phenomenal. And then there's lots of display cabinets of things used to stab Turks as well. So that's obviously the two facets of Greek military history, which are kind of quite important. Cool Turkish helmets and big spiky things with which Turks were stabbed. And so Persian helmets, in fact, 19th century, even later. So that's been purloined from somewhere. I wasn't quite right on that one. And again, this is your things to stab the Turk display over there. And then I actually nipped pretty much next door from that one to a Byzantine museum, which is kind of, it's not particularly military-ish, but it's got elements of it, but it's about sort of Byzantine life and culture and the Greek cities in Byzantium, and it's got some pretty cool stuff in it as well. So, but I think this one though may have been actually another museum entirely, where which was almost not quite a pop-up, but a temporary one, which had artifacts from the Battle of, and it will come to me when I see the caption, the one in which Philip defeated the Greeks really and established Macedonian hegemony over the Peloponnese. And these are actually some of the grave finds and archaeological finds, some of these incredible shields from hoplites and phalangites from that battle. Is it Megara? Is that the one I'm looking at? So here you go. 3rd to 4th century. A lot of it from Igoumenitsa. There we go. That's where a lot of this stuff is kept. Where the near the battle was. And again, look, this is real detail from real Macedonian. It is a real Macedonian shield, or what's left of one, and the metallic covering showing how the pattern was embossed onto it, how much detail there was in the pattern. Good news if you are a fan of little big man shield transfers, I think there. And then some more actual swords and helmets from some of the more archaic, older style hoplites who would have been coming up against the phalanx here. You've got some arrowheads as well, which I believe there's probably a caption about in a moment. Sorry, there's a rhomphier. Let's go back at that. Let's see what this is. So yes, this here is a Thracian rhomphier. Not quite as curved as I might expect, but it's definitely there. But it's the Thracian rhomphier, a real one. completely bonkers, really, to think these things still exist. And the lead shot has got the inscription of King Philip. It was owned by King Philip. So that's a pretty well organised army when they've got a return address printed on the lead shot that they're slinging at the opposition, I think. So yeah, there's the lead shot, and you can see the inscription's just about on it there. And then here, what have we got here? You've got a brass cavalryman's Boeotian helmet and an iron sword from a cavalryman. So I think a lot of these I end up probably painting as floppy hats, possibly, but clearly there are steel helmets in that style, and I'll probably have to look at some of my troops again and see if I've given them floppy hats and not really helped them out. And then here, Charonea, that's the name of the battle, isn't it? And they've got some, let me just flip that round for you. They've actually got the grave finds of the defeated army of Charonea, because Philip, to honour them, kind of buried them all at the same time, or put them on a big funeral pyre rather than letting them sort of be dispersed. So these are actually soldiers who fought, remains of soldiers who fought at Charonea. There we go, the Thebans and the Sacred Band, and 254 warriors were buried there in formation that mimic their positions in the battle. And you can read that for yourself. The wounds show that this was actually from the conflict: spears, swords, all sorts of things facing the Macedonians, cavalry and phalangites, and honoured for their bravery by being allowed to be buried by Philip. And this is a kind of graphic of how the grave was excavated, or what it would have looked like when it was excavated. So you can see that in there. Lots and lots and lots of sort of cartoonish representations of those bodies in that grave. And then here, the Macedonians were burnt. These are the burnt remains of the Macedonians who died as well, and some of their weapons all arrayed in there. This is really, I was going to say touching history. Clearly you can't touch that, and it'd be wrong to do so, but it is so close to such a pivotal moment to actually be in the room with the remains of the people who were involved. Is quite sobering, really. And there's a bit of a bust of Alexander. Very, very big on the old hair as well, definitely. Possibly some of the films are not too unlike, really, which is quite remarkable. And then I found yet another museum which had really sort of early proto pre-Mycenaean type stuff in it, when people weren't even in The Simpsons. They were just real kind of space aliens. And again, all of these things in quite close proximity in the middle of Athens, and a pretty good trip to do, particularly when dodging between rain, and to tie into a competition in Athens. So I hope you've enjoyed that very quick run through of the photos that I managed to take on the trip.